What would you do if a single sentence ripped your entire future apart? Not behind closed doors, but in front of cameras, reporters, and the whole world watching. That's the nightmare that just became reality for King Harris, the son of rap legend T.I. Inside a packed courtroom buzzing with journalists and flashing cameras, the judge's words cut like a blade. Life in prison. The gavel slammed. The sound wasn't just loud, it echoed like a death sentence, bouncing off the walls as if it was meant to crush everyone inside. And in that instant, T.I., the king of the South, a man who built an entire legacy on resilience and survival, collapsed to the ground. He didn't stumble, he fell flat, knees buckling under the weight of those 3 words. This was the same man who once went live and warned his son about the dangers of prison bars. But now, that prophecy was unfolding right in front of him, only it wasn't just a warning. It was a curse come true. Tiny, King's mother, screamed like it was the end of the world. Officers scrambled to hold her back as she tried to rush to her son. The gallery erupted into chaos, people shouting, crying, some gasping as if the verdict had hit them too. But here's the real kicker. Was this really about King Harris? Or was it a calculated strike to break his father once and for all? Because let's be real. When power, politics, and enemies collide, prison isn't always just punishment. It can be a weapon. And what went down inside that courtroom didn't look like justice. It looked like a show. A performance with the Harris family at center stage and the whole world watching. And just when it seemed like things couldn't spiral any further, something happened that no one in that courtroom was ready for. The meltdown inside that courtroom didn't come out of nowhere. This wasn't some random twist of fate. No, this was years in the making. Back in 2022, T.I. himself went live on Instagram and dropped what now sounds like a prophecy. His words were blunt, almost chilling. If my boy doesn't change his ways, prison is where he's headed, and there's nothing I can do to stop it. At the time, fans brushed it off. They said Tip was being dramatic, exaggerating, maybe just playing the tough dad role. But fast forward 2 years, and those words became the exact script for what the world is witnessing today. The father saw it coming. But the son? He refused to listen. By late 2024, King Harris was spiraling harder than ever. The headlines and Instagram clips told the story. Reckless driving, late-night fights, and flexing on social media like he had something to prove. It wasn't just rebellion. It was like he was auditioning for his own downfall. And then came the moment everything unraveled. It was October. King was behind the wheel of his BMW, speeding through Atlanta like he owned the city. Then, disaster. He nearly smashed into a police cruiser right outside a gas station. When the officers pulled him over, what they found was like something straight out of a music video gone wrong. Weed smoke billowed out of the car like a fog machine. A gun rested on his hip, sitting proudly as if he wanted the world to see it. The cops didn't need to dig for probable cause. King practically gift-wrapped the case for them. But the real bombshell? That wasn't even the worst part. When they ran his name, an old warrant from 2022 came back to haunt him. DUI, reckless driving, suspended license, missed court dates. It was a ticking time bomb just waiting to explode. And in 2024, it finally did. The arrest footage, nearly half an hour long, went viral overnight. Millions watched as King was pulled from his car, cuffed, searched, and thrown into the back of a patrol cruiser. It looked less like a routine arrest and more like a scene ripped straight from a Netflix docuseries. And you know the internet. They didn't just watch. They dissected every single frame like it was evidence in a conspiracy case. Some laughed, calling it his official street cred moment. Others were horrified, especially because just weeks earlier, King had been celebrating the birth of his newborn son. Think about that. One moment he's posting baby shower clips, rapping about fatherhood in a track called Dear Son, and the next he's trending worldwide for being slammed against the hood of a police cruiser. If irony had a face, it was King Harris that night. For T.I., though, this wasn't just another viral headline. It was a nightmare on repeat. He'd lived this life. He'd barely survived it himself. And now, watching his son walk the same razor's edge, it was déjà vu with a cruel twist. That Instagram live from 2022, the one fans laughed at, suddenly felt less like parenting advice and more like prophecy. And the storm was only just beginning. Because the trial that followed wouldn't just drag King through the mud. It would put the entire Harris family on trial in front of the world. By the time King Harris set foot in that courtroom, it wasn't just a trial anymore. It was an event. The Super Bowl of hip-hop gossip, and the world couldn't look away. Outside, fans lined the sidewalks, holding signs and chanting like it was a concert. Bloggers, YouTubers, and so-called legal experts crowded around, desperate to snag a clip or quote that would go viral. Hashtags flooded timelines. Harris family drama, Jark Street or stupidity, justice for King. Inside, the scene was even wilder. Prosecutors painted King as a reckless menace who thought fame made him untouchable. They pointed to the videos, the fights, the arrest footage. They framed him as someone who believed the rules didn't apply to him, someone who had been given chance after chance and still threw it all away. But the defense had a different story. They painted King not as a criminal, but as a young father under pressure. A boy trying to escape the weight of a famous last name, stumbling along the way but not beyond redemption. They showed pictures of him holding his newborn son, highlighted his attempts to step into music, and argued that he was more lost than dangerous. Every witness, every leaked photo, every piece of evidence became content for the digital circus outside. Twitter threads analyzed the testimony like it was a TV show. TikTok edits spliced courtroom sketches with dramatic soundtracks. Instagram reels turned Tiny's tears into remixes, making heartbreak into viral entertainment. And then came sentencing day, the moment the world had been waiting for. The Harris family sat in the front row, the tension so heavy it could crush anyone in the room. Tiny clutched tissues like they were her lifeline. T.I. sat stiff as a statue, his jaw clenched so hard you could see the veins in his neck. King himself sat at the defendant's table, sweating bullets, staring down at his hands as if they held the answers he so desperately needed. The cameras clicked, reporters whispered, fans online typed furiously, waiting to see if the judge would go light or throw the book. The judge adjusted his glasses, cleared his throat, and dropped the bomb. King Harris, for the crimes presented before this court, you are hereby sentenced to life in state prison. The words ricocheted through the courtroom like gunfire. Tiny screamed. Fans in the gallery gasped. And T.I., the man who built a career on never letting the system break him, broke. His knees gave out. His body collapsed onto the cold tile floor, and chaos erupted like a riot. Security scrambled to control the room. Tiny lunged forward, screaming her son's name as officers dragged her back. T.I. roared from the floor, trembling, pointing at the bench. "This is a setup! You're destroying my son's life!" And just when everyone thought the courtroom had reached its breaking point, it got even wilder. Just when it seemed the courtroom couldn't spiral any further, it did. From the very back of the gallery, a hooded figure suddenly stood up. The chaos froze for a split second, every eye turning toward him. In one hand, he clutched a small USB drive. In the other, he pointed directly at the judge. His voice cut through the uproar like a blade. "I have the proof. King Harris was framed." Gasps filled the room. Reporters dropped their pens. Officers lunged toward him, but not before his final words echoed across the chamber. "The truth will come out." Security tackled him to the ground, wresting the USB from his hand. Cameras snapped blurry photos. Fans in the gallery screamed. Within minutes, those clips were online and the internet exploded. On TikTok, theories spread like wildfire. Was he a whistleblower? A disgruntled employee? A planted distraction? Some claimed he was an ex-bodyguard of the Harris family. Others swore his accent tied him to one of T.I.'s old enemies in Atlanta. Memes surfaced instantly. The USB was photoshopped to glow like a sacred artifact, compared to the One Ring from Lord of the Rings. Twitter threads dissected every frame of the footage, slowing it down, enhancing the blurry screenshots, swearing they could identify the man. But the real question was this: what was on that USB? Major news outlets treaded carefully, labeling the incident as unverified. But blogs and fan pages, they didn't hesitate. Headlines screamed, "USB evidence proves King Harris innocent," and mysterious figure exposes Harris family conspiracy. The trial, already a circus, had just mutated into something else entirely, a global conspiracy saga. And the Harris family, already crumbling under the pressure, was about to implode. Because behind closed doors, whispers suggested the USB wasn't just about King. It hinted at enemies far closer to home. And inside the Harris household that night, all hell broke loose. The courtroom chaos may have made headlines, but what happened inside the Harris household that night never made it to the official reports. Still, whispers from neighbors, insiders, and even police scanners painted a brutal picture. The Harris family was at war with itself. Sources claimed the shouting began the moment they walked through the door. T.I., furious and shaken, accused Tiny of holding back critical information that could have saved their son. His voice, usually measured and controlled, roared through the house like thunder. Tiny fired back through tears, swearing she had nothing to hide. But the pain in her voice revealed something deeper. A woman torn between protecting her husband, her son, and her own sanity. Neighbors reported glass shattering, furniture slamming, voices breaking into raw screams. At one point, someone claimed police were called to calm the storm after the fight spilled into the driveway. A family once known as hip-hop royalty now looked like a dynasty cracking apart under the weight of its own secrets. But what exactly were those secrets? That's where the rumors grew darker. Some insiders whispered that Tiny had been keeping certain phone calls away from T.I., conversations that suggested King had been threatened days before his arrest. Others claimed Tip's enemies had finally caught up to him, and King was just collateral damage in a much bigger war. The most haunting rumor? That someone close to the family had helped orchestrate the downfall. Not an outsider, but an insider with motive and access. It was a chilling thought, that the greatest betrayal of all might not have come from the streets, but from within their own circle. And while the family tore itself apart behind closed doors, the storm outside only grew louder. Because the internet wasn't finished with the Harris saga. The USB clip was already circulating. Anonymous leaks started dropping, and King Harris's name wasn't just trending anymore. It was mutating into a movement. But if the Harris family thought the worst was behind them, they were dead wrong. The real chaos was just getting started. If the courtroom felt like a circus, the internet became a coliseum, and the Harris family was thrown straight into the arena. The mysterious USB clip was all anyone could talk about. Within hours, anonymous accounts began posting what they claimed were its contents. A shaky 47-second video of two figures in a dimly lit parking lot. One looked eerily like King Harris. The figure accepted a duffel bag, and just before the video cut, a muffled voice whispered, "This is the setup. Make sure the cameras catch him." The internet lost its mind. Blogs splashed headlines like "Leaked USB blows case wide open" and "King Harris victim of a bigger game." Major outlets called it unverified, but fans didn't care. To them, this was the smoking gun. Then came the leaks. A grainy audio file surfaced, allegedly of King himself. His trembling voice said, "They're setting me up, bro. It ain't about me. They want my pops. I'm just the pawn." Hours later, another leak appeared, this time allegedly capturing T.I. saying, "This ain't about King, this is about breaking me." Were these recordings authentic? Nobody could prove it. But on the internet, proof didn't matter. Speculation became gospel. And just like that, the Harris saga shifted from courtroom drama to global scandal. Twitter, TikTok, and Instagram lit up with theories. One camp claimed King was framed as part of a political takedown. Another argued he had dug his own grave through reckless choices. Reddit detectives zoomed in on blurry screenshots, matching shoes, voices, even shadows. The hashtags told the story. Justice for King, Jars protect the Harris legacy, Jars system setup. Celebrities couldn't stay quiet either. Meek Mill tweeted, "The system don't play fair with none of us. This bigger than King." Cardi B dropped a cryptic Instagram story. "They'll break your family just to send a message." Even rappers who once beefed with T.I. posted vague prayers. Careful not to pick sides, but unwilling to miss the trending wave. Meanwhile, the streets of Atlanta were shifting from whispers to war cries. Candlelight vigils popped up outside courthouses. Graffiti murals of King appeared overnight, painted with halos and angel wings. Protesters clashed with police, chanting for justice as helicopters buzzed overhead. And through it all, one question kept echoing online. Was King Harris guilty, or was he sacrificed in a game much bigger than himself? Just when it seemed the chaos had reached its peak, the darkest revelations began to surface. The kind that don't just stain reputations, but threaten to burn entire legacies to the ground. First came the hackers. A group claiming to have the full contents of the Hooded Stranger's USB released a teaser. a 15-second clip showing prosecutors clinking glasses with powerful figures, allegedly celebrating King's conviction before the trial even ended. Whether real or fake, it was dynamite. Within minutes, the internet froze. Blogs ran it like gospel, while mainstream outlets scrambled to verify. But that was only the beginning. An anonymous blogger, claiming to be a Harris family insider, dropped a bombshell thread. According to them, King's downfall wasn't random, it was orchestrated. The motive? Revenge. They tied it back to an old betrayal involving T.I. and a shadowy Atlanta figure with political connections. Attached were blurred screenshots, cryptic voice notes, and shaky documents. None of it could be confirmed, but all of it was juicy enough to fuel the frenzy. And then came the ugliest rumor of all, the one that cut deeper than any legal sentence. A former Harris bodyguard, face hidden in shadows during a viral interview, claimed, "King might not even be T.I.'s biological son." That single line detonated like a bomb. Was it slander? A smear campaign? Or a secret Tiny had kept buried for years? Tabloids didn't care. They plastered headlines suggesting DNA tests, hidden relatives, and backdoor deals. Fans didn't wait for answers. They picked sides, some accusing Tiny of betrayal, others defending her as a mother under siege. For T.I., it wasn't just an insult, it was an execution. Cameras captured him outside the courthouse, tears streaming down his face as he screamed into the microphones, "That's my son! You can't rewrite history!" The image was everywhere within hours, immortalizing him not as a rapper or mogul, but as a father unraveling in real time. Meanwhile, King's own nightmare inside prison grew worse. Rumors claimed he had been thrown into solitary for his protection. A leaked inmate letter described nights of him crying out, begging someone to believe him. "They're breaking me piece by piece." Then came the mugshot. But this wasn't the usual stoic prison photo. King's right eye was swollen shut, his lip busted, bruises splattered across his face. Outrage detonated online. Was he attacked before his first night in prison? Did guards stage it? Theories flew faster than the system could respond. The hashtags on Protect King and Justice for King skyrocketed, fueled by celebrities demanding an investigation. And just when it felt like the story couldn't get darker, it did. An audio leak allegedly captured a senior political figure sneering, "King Harris is the perfect pawn. His father will watch him crumble, and there's nothing he can do." That was the breaking point. Atlanta streets erupted into fire. Protests turned into riots. Tear gas filled the air as shrines for King burned alongside graffiti branding him guilty blood. The Harris name, once hip-hop royalty, had become a curse. And the world wasn't asking if King Harris was guilty anymore. They were asking a far more chilling question. How deep does this go? And who's really pulling the strings? By now, Atlanta wasn't just a city. It was a battlefield. Protesters filled the streets with signs and chants. Helicopters roared overhead, and the air itself felt like it was splitting apart. Some marched with candles, others with rage, but all carried the same message. This case wasn't just about King Harris. It was about power, about revenge, about a system crushing a family that refused to bow. Inside the Harris mansion, the collapse was just as violent. Insiders whispered about screaming matches so loud the walls shook. T.I. accused Tiny of hiding a secret phone call that could have proved King was threatened before the arrest. Through sobs, Tiny swore she would never betray her son. But the damage was done. Trust had shattered like glass. Then came the cryptic message from King's sister, Zonique. She posted just 6 words to her socials. "The truth will burn everything down." Fans went wild with theories. Was she hinting at family secrets? Was the Harris legacy itself about to be exposed? The speculation only poured gasoline on an already raging fire. And then came the most chilling twist of all. Another anonymous leak surfaced, allegedly an audio recording of a senior political figure. The voice sneered coldly. "King Harris was never the target. His father was. The boy is just the pawn." That line changed everything. The protests turned into riots. Fires lit up Atlanta streets, graffiti screamed accusations, and police clashed with citizens who believed the Harris family wasn't just fighting for King's freedom. They were fighting for survival against forces much bigger than the law. Meanwhile, inside a dark prison cell, King Harris was reduced to whispers. Leaked clips showed him bruised, broken, his voice trembling as he said, "If I don't make it out, remember me as someone who fought to the end. They want my dad, not me." And that's the chilling truth. This was never just about one young man in cuffs. This was about a dynasty under fire, enemies in the shadows, and a system willing to destroy a son just to break a father. Now, the question isn't whether King Harris is guilty. The question is far darker. Who's really pulling the strings, and who's next? So tell me, was King Harris truly guilty of his mistakes, or was he sacrificed in a war far bigger than him? Is this the fall of a dynasty, or the start of a revolution against a broken system? Drop your thoughts in the comments below, because this story is far from over. And don't forget, hit that like button, subscribe, and share this video everywhere, because if the system is trying to bury the truth, it's up to us to make sure it gets heard. Stay locked in, because the darkest chapter of this story is still coming. So in the end, this was never just about King Harris sitting in a courtroom. It was about power, revenge, and the destruction of a dynasty right before our eyes. Was King guilty of his own mistakes? Or was he sacrificed in a much bigger game, a pawn used to break his father, T.I.? Because from the mysterious USB to the explosive family feuds, from leaked audios to violent protests in the streets of Atlanta, one thing is clear: this story is far from over. And the real question isn't just why King Harris, it's who's pulling the strings. And who could be next? Drop your theories in the comments right now, guilty or framed. Smash that like button, subscribe, and share this video everywhere because the truth shouldn't stay buried. Stay locked in, because the darkest chapter of this story has only just begun.